if the GDP of Scotland is X and the total payroll of small, medium, and large companies is Y, take 30 to 35% of that, and that will likely be what's provided by freelancers.
So kind of in regard to that, and obviously we touched on the kind of ruling earlier by the Supreme Court, do you have kind of, do you think that the Uber ruling will affect the way that freelance is on other industries and other sectors, or do you think it will be kind of...
I think that there's a real difference between gig workers and freelancers. So in my definition, a freelancer is somebody with professional qualifications that brings expertise and experience and a career-mindedness to the project.
Yep.
That's a very different thing than a guy or a lady that's trying to cobble together an income. And that's the way to think about a gig worker. And God bless. I mean, I've been a dog owner for a million years, and I know how hard it is to train a dog. Yep. So if you're a dog walker, I consider you a very skilled person. But the reality, you're not a professional dog walker for the most part in that sense. If you were, I'd move you to the other side. Normally, you're driving a cab or an Uber. You're walking dogs. You're doing some TaskRabbit stuff. You may be doing something else, and what you're trying to do is put food on the table until something else comes along, and who knows what that is. So, not a valuation of the individuals, because we're all equal in that sense. But the difference between a professional career done as an independent professional and the work of a gigster.
No, definitely a good way of putting it, for sure. So again, obviously we were kind of talking earlier before we started recording about what keeps freelancers interested in platforms, obviously the way to kind of keep engagement going over years of growth and that kind of thing. So one of the questions that we've got is, what do you think makes a freelancer to keep returning to the same platform, obviously as it kind of grows and career kind of continues on?
I think it's those 5 things and the ability for the platform to grow as the individual grows. And I'll give you an example. And I'm not sure to what extent it's immediately relevant to you guys, but it's a good example. There are a bunch of independent one of the largest areas of freelancing in the UK is independent management consultants. And so whether it's a platform like Talmix or it's any other, Worksome is here and a bunch of others. The reality is that there are now, it's a dumbbell distribution. It's quite interesting. So a lot of people took their MBA and then went to a bank or went to a consultancy and worked for 3 or 4 years, and then either got laid off or furloughed, or they said, I've had it. And they've joined independent management consulting platforms. And then there's a lot of people who are very senior. These guys are saying, we want to work together.
Yeah.
And so you've got the seniors who are saying, I want to give back. I want to mentor. And by the way, some of this work isn't the right work for me to do. It's for a younger guy. And some of the younger guys are saying, I only was there 2 or 3 years. I have a base level of skills, but I'd sure like a little bit more experience from somebody who's got a little bit of gray hair. And that's the sort of thing that great platforms do. They make more connections. Think of it this way, and that is, how do you create as much stickiness as possible? And the way you create as much stickiness as possible, Harvey, is to meet more of my needs and to show me how others don't.
Yep.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously, the big thing that we're trying to focus on, as kind of obviously being a new startup and not having even launched yet, which will obviously be next week, is trying to find that almost gap that other freelance platforms in the UK aren't quite hitting yet, which is why obviously we're dealing with the whole ensuring statement of works and that kind of thing, and just trying to do the things that other people aren't doing and keeping everybody, happy, and taking the bit, as you said yourself earlier, taking the bits that nobody likes doing and doing it for them, which is obviously the key.
Now remember, the other thing is that nothing stands still.
Yeah.
And so you got to stay up to date on what others are doing, because I promise you that other platforms that you're competing with, are trying to get better too. So you got to have one eye on your competition so that you understand that gap. Very important. And the other thing is you just got to stay connected to your community. I mean, you've got to use pulse surveys and other sorts of things and just make sure you know what's going on.
Definitely. Brilliant. Last question that we've got here is probably a nice way to sum it up. Obviously, kind of globally as well as just kind of UK based, how do you see tech as an industry in itself kind of changing over the next 5 years or so? Just obviously due to the increase in freelancers and side giggers and all this kind of breakdown of it.
The best way to describe it is I want you to meet my friend Karen, Keren, Etkin, Etkin. And she goes to something, she's the creator of something called the Geron Technologist.
Right.
Technology that is specific to older people, makes their life better, increases their lifetime, et cetera, based on the premise that people are getting smarter about technology. Yep. This is an industry that's now worth over $2 trillion.
Yeah.
If you think about that, it didn't exist 5 years ago.
True.
If you think about crypto, it didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. If you think about fintech, it's a whole new world. I mean, so Andreessen was right when he said software is eating the world. The consequence of saying software is eating the world means that more and more of the world depends on innovation in software. So it's kind of the right place to be forever.
No, 100%. That was the big thing, obviously, when because I've came from recruitment into kind of doing this. It was almost that kind of realization of this is definitely the way that things are just going to
absolutely.
Over the next couple of years. You know, it's the new kind of way forward, so to speak. And
my son is just to give you an example. My son was a pretty senior guy in PwC, and left to join TopTel as a client partner because he said, "Gee, I mean, I'm dealing with stuff I wouldn't have dealt with as a consultant in a much more active sort of way," and he's making more money.
That's right. Definitely cool. So that's kind of all the questions we've got. Thanks. It was brilliant.